All right, Vernon Wells on the Fishbowl. Welcome.
Thank you.
Absolutely, great to have you on. Now,
My
are you in
pleasure.
Los Angeles?
I'm in Los Angeles, yes.
How's the weather out there?
It's nice and mild and sunny. No rain, which we would love to have some. I just came from Texas, Dallas, Texas last weekend, and they got like 7 or 8 inches of rain. So I think we'd love to get some of it over here.
Well, Pittsburgh would love to let you have what we've been having nonstop.
We should do a deal.
Yeah, yeah, because we'd also like some of that sunny, nice weather as well.
Yeah, there should be some way of doing this.
Right, right. Anyways, uh, first, question I like to ask my guests and everything is, being in the film industry, and an actor, what got you into film in the first place?
Um, I'd probably classify myself as dumb. Uh, I kind of never wanted to be an actor. My mother was a very successful songwriter before I was born, and I kind of followed her footsteps in the fact that I went into bands, and I worked in a lot of big bands in Australia for quite a few years. And that was where I thought I would be, is sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but it didn't kind of work out that way. Through circumstance and a severe car accident, I was unable to work with the band, and our manager got a little bit sick of having me hang around, so I took my photos around to all the modeling agencies, and one of them said that I would probably be perfect for some commercials that were being shot. And lo and behold, I got the commercials and got paid, and I thought, oh, this is pretty cool. I'm not paying five other people. I'm just making it all for myself. And that was where it started. I really wasn't that interested in acting. It was kind of fun. Nothing that really drew me kicking and screaming towards it. I was more interested in behind the camera. I was much more interested in directing and producing, things like that. That was where my interest was. And that was where I gravitated to. And I formed a company that produced and directed television commercials after I spent about 2.5 years working with one of Australia's top commercial directors. Um, and that's what I thought I would do. I love directing. I love being involved in the process. But unfortunately, once again, what I wanted really didn't matter. I was sort of drug over towards the acting side, and that eventually became my passion, which it is now, although directing is still one of my favorite things to do. But the acting side of it is well and truly taken over most of what I do.
Very, very cool and interesting as well. I did not know the whole sex, drugs, and rock and roll aspect, which I'm very interested actually, and I'd like to now knowing that would like to just ask a little bit about that. What were some of the rock bands that you got to work with and that you were in and everything?
Well, most of the stuff was bands that I formed myself. Gary Anderson, who was the lead singer of Rose Tattoo, the heavy metal band,
Right.
Gary and I, Gary and I grew up together. We were like 4, 5, no, maybe 10 blocks apart. We started working in bands together way, way, way back, a million years ago. And I went more into the middle of the road rock and roll, and Gary, of course, went more for the more savage, brutal side of rock and roll. The grinding your teeth into sharp points and all that kind of thing. Wasn't really my scene. I didn't want to get that way, so I stayed back on the other side and worked with. I had a band called Inca's Inc., which was like Inca, the people, and then INCK at the end of it, which was a very successful show band. and did a lot of middle of the road work. I worked with a couple of, I guess they would be called Australia's first super bands, super groups, where we a lot of people got together who were from all different bands and studio musicians, things like this, and we all worked together doing shows. It was never anything that was set in stone. It was kind of a fluid thing where people sort of came and went, or all that kind of thing, which was kind of fun. You know, I enjoyed it. It was what I loved doing. I loved being up front in a band and being a vocalist and doing my thing. And it kind of suited my attitude to things. I grew up in the era of Little River Band and all these amazing Australian groups and groups out of New Zealand. That was the era that I grew up in, so I knew all of those people. Johnny Farnham, people like that. We all worked in the same kind of area. You know, Pat Carroll and all this kind of thing. We sort of gravitated together and worked. Because the business in Australia is not that, well, I suppose it still isn't, was never that big in respect to having a lot of people in it. So the people that were in it sort of got to know each other pretty well, because there wasn't that many venues you played at, so you all sort of ran into each other somewhere or other. And that was how it all went down. But I wasn't, once everything started to change and I went into acting, I got out of that kind of side of it. And the acting, once I decided to do it, took over and became my prime focus, and the directing and doing the commercials and things like that. So I really worked my way out of it. Gary stayed in it and became very famous. Gary Anderson and Rose Tattoo, they all became very famous. And the fun about that is that I did Road Warrior, and then Gary did the one straight after that, Thunderdome. He was one of the villains in Thunderdome. So we got to do the same thing yet again. It's like he was following me around. But they were still great friends, and it was just, the way it was, it wasn't a big industry. At that stage, I believe we had like 14 million people in the whole of Australia. I think now we've got like 23. So it wasn't a huge population.
Very, very interesting. And that's also a great segue because the first film I want to actually ask you about, which is probably my number one favorite that you're in, is Road Warrior.
Yeah, the good old Road Warrior. I guess if I had my way, I wouldn't have done it because I was terrified of it. I never thought I could do what George required for the film. It was my first film. I'd done television. I'd never really been out front that much as an actor. I was doing more, just the special extra, I think you'd like to call them, but the guy who was always the star of the series, best friend sort of thing. Or if they were doing a series about early Australia when the convicts came over, like I'd be the sidekick to the head honcho. And I did a lot of ABC drama that we had going on at that stage, and Cop Shop and Police Story, all of those kind of things. None of them were things that really trained you as an actor. They were things that you got as, like here, you were doing a guest spot. But I got asked to do I got asked to do a stage play, which I really didn't want to do. It was called Hosanna by Michel Tremblay. Very, very difficult play because of the subject matter. It was basically about a transvestite and her boyfriend. And it was a very, very difficult play for me to do, being that it was the exact opposite to what I was in real life. So it was this real dichotomy of who I was and what I had to do, and it was a struggle being such a young actor and to get inside this and try to make it work. But I guess I did, because George Miller's girlfriend at the time, Sandy Gore, saw a stage production, saw the show and suggested to George that he speak to me about Road Warrior, and lo and behold, George talked to me, and from that, I got the film. Not that there was any formal casting or any sort of handshake, nothing. George came down to Melbourne from Sydney. We had a cup of coffee. We told jokes to each other. Um, Finally, he said to me, "Do some stuff from the play you're doing," which I did for him. And he said, "Great. You know, I'll see you later." And he got on the plane and flew back to Sydney, and I went back to my business. At that stage, I was back directing. So I had no further interaction with him and thought no more of it. Um, and then my agent rang me one day and said you needed in Sydney for costume fittings and for wardrobe and makeup and all this kind of thing. And I was like, for what? And I said, for the new Mad Max. I hadn't even seen the first Mad Max, so it still made no sense to me. And I was like, well, who, what, where? And he said, well, go to Sydney and find out, sort of thing. And I flew to Sydney, and they did wardrobe and makeup tests on me. And all the time I was fighting it. I was saying no, that I didn't think I could do it. And George just ignored me, basically. God bless his little cotton socks. He really didn't take a lot of interest in what I thought. He was set on his course, and that was the end of it. And that was basically how it came about. And God bless him for pursuing me, and because the character and the film became classics, which is to me mind blowing. Nobody set out to make this amazing classic movie. We set out to make the best movie we could. We all thought it was going to be a fun road movie, and that Australia and Japan and places like that would probably really like it. Nobody ever thought that the longevity of that particular film would be what it was. That 35 years later, people still refer to Mad Max as the best of the series. That Road Warrior was the best Mad Max movie made, including this new one. And that's kind of mind blowing to me that people can have that that kind of attitude to what we did, and it's also really, really fulfilling to know that we created something back then that has withstood that many years and all these different films that have tried to duplicate it all the way through, and as yet came out on top as the one film that people look at and go, wow, that was how you make a film. So I'm blessed and very happy and proud of it, to be blunt.
That is such an awesome story, and I am definitely one of those fans that definitely has to put Road Warrior as the best out of the original Mad Max trilogy, and Mad Max Fury Road probably next, Thunderdome after that, and then the original Mad Max. And I was like 8 years old. I was born in '88. I was 8 years old when my dad showed me Road Warrior. He had already shown me Mad Max because my uncle gave it to me on a double VHS Mel Gibson set. First was one of
Yeah.
the movies was Mad Max. The other was the remake of The Bounty, and both were
Wow.
great. But he said you need to like now see Road Warrior, and you know besides Road Warrior being an amazing, amazing piece of cinema history and concept, and just an all out awesome, film. It has the whole Mad Max trilogy has been such an inspiration on me because I'm currently in my senior year here in Pittsburgh at Point Park University going for screenwriting, and I have such inspiration from that film. Because of that film, anything that takes place in a desert setting, whether it's post-apocalyptic, a western, it's because of the Mad Max trilogy, specifically Road Warrior. that I have a love for the desert setting, and now with my own work, I prefer to have my settings be in a desert landscape.
Yeah, it's funny that the actual film itself, if you look at it, what was depicted in that film by George way back then, the society that we become, the attitudes of the society around us, the way we live and what we do to survive is all foretold of what we're in now. If you look at the world now and how, we're not quite as bad. We don't all live in desert settings and have it as bad. But if you look at what's happening in the Middle East and the fact that oil has become so much a part of our philosophy and so much a part of our world that we live in that we can't do without it. We've become so dependent on it that we will fight wars to protect what we feel is the only thing left to keep us surviving, when the actuality is that everything can be synthesized except water. You cannot make water, and yet water is the scarcest commodity we have. But we haven't quite understood yet that oil and all that kind of thing, we could get away without it because we can figure out some other way of making it, some other way of utilizing something else to achieve the same end. But we can't survive without water. It's 80% of our body, for God's sake.
Right.
So it's fun that the movie that George created 35 years ago is more telling today than it was back then. I was with George for the opening in Tokyo of Fury Road, and I mentioned to him that I would have loved back then to have been on the drugs he was on when they did Mad Max and did my film, because they had something going, man, that we knew nothing about. And I would have loved to have known what it was. Because, boy, now when I look at the headlines, I go, dear God, we shot that, and now they're living it. And it's a little bit interesting to be in that situation of where it's a little bit like doing the original Star Trek and Star Wars, and seeing all the things that were put into those movies come to fruition, like the tablet and the scanners, MIR scanners, and the cell phones, and all that kind of stuff that they used way back then on a sci-fi show that everybody went, that's bloody ridiculous, that'll never happen, is now so part of what we do that we couldn't live without them. I just find that quite intriguing, and I think that Road Warrior had that same impact.
It definitely did, and I'm in full agreement with you on exactly what you just said. I mean, it's scary how not just Road Warrior, but a lot of, and not just Star Trek, but I mean, if you look at the original James Bond movies,
Mm-hmm.
they introduced GPS. You know,
Yep.
we have GPS every. There's GPS on phones now. It's like a regular thing. I mean, where we just went past the actual date of Back to the Future Part Two. How much did that predict?
Yeah.
That's a reality now, and it's with the type of sci-fi films that are coming out now, and what they're predicting for the next 30 to 70 years is very, very frightening. To think about if the 80s, the 60s into the 80s, predicted, what's true now, what's the sci-fi stuff that's coming out now going to predict for, the next 30 to 70 years with where we're heading. It's definitely a scary thing to think about.
Oh yeah. It's scary but interesting. But we've come so far, but we haven't gone anywhere. It's kind of to me, it's all kind of interesting how we and we have this horrible habit of never looking at history and learning. We always say, no, that can't happen to us. But unfortunately, it does. I look at what we are as a society now, and we're similar to the Roman Empire.
Right.
I mean, what happened to them? So, it's kind of like we just don't, we learn about it, we study it, but it's like, well, that was them, this is us. And it's like, yeah, okay, but we're the same. Interesting, yes. Anyway, getting from the morbid back to the movies, which are all fun.
Right.
Um,
Right.
loved loved Mad Max. Loved doing it. Had a ball. Froze my butt off, as they say in polite society. If you look at the movie, everybody else was wearing a lot of clothes, and I was wearing none. I think that was George's way of teaching me a lesson for being a smart ass most of the time on the set. Um, but I got to get frozen and everybody else got to be warm. So it was an interesting time. And I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. And if I had to do it again, I'd do it exactly the same way.
Awesome. Now, my next question before I move on to the next film I'd like to talk about is since George brought back Hugh Keys-Byrne for
Mm-hmm.
Immortan Joe, like he was the toe cutter in the first Mad Max, he's Immortan Joe,
Mm-hmm.
the villain in Fury Road. Is there a possibility that we might be seeing a return of Vernon Wells as a villain in the next Mad Max sequel?
I have no idea, to be really, really honest with you. If George rang me and said, I want you to do this, I would be the first person to say yes. I love him. I love working with him. I think the man is wonderful and brilliant. But we didn't talk about it. I haven't talked to him about it. I would love it if I could do it. I know why I wasn't in this one because of the problem that the character that we created in Wes was just too readily identifiable. You know, people identify me by my eyes, my voice, my mannerisms. They didn't identify Hugh Keysburn the same way.
Right.
Um, he didn't get kind of caught into that, which my character did. I think because there was so much about him that was unique that George, when we were creating Wes, that we put all these unique characteristics to him. So, of course, the way I talk, the way I use my eyes, the way I use my hands, it's all too easy to recognize. And, in the Fury Road, that would have been such a distraction because no matter what he did with me, it still would have been everybody looking for the Mohawk and Wes to come, racing over the hill type thing. So that wasn't a possibility. But in the next one, who knows? One doesn't know what George is going to do. One just waits to see if he's going to ring and say hi. And that would be kind of cool.
Well, you know what? I, for one, would love to see you in the next one. I mean, after Fury Road, I mean, they they've done so many, reboots and sequels and more sequels and prequels to all this, all the classic, 80s, whether it's slasher or um, cult films, sci-fi
Mm-hmm.
films, and for the most part, they're not that good. There's a few out of them that have been actually decent. Um, some that I can actually say, yeah, those are just as good as the original, but those are so rare, out of everything that's come out. But when I saw the teaser trailer for Fury Road, and I had been keeping an eye on Fury Road for over 10 years. I had heard about the possibility of it, and I'd been keeping tabs. And when I saw that it had a release date, and then the cast, you know, um, and then they released the teaser trailer, and the moment the opening shot, is the voiceover with Tom Hardy, and it doesn't even tell you anything about, what Fury Road's about, but just from what I saw, the way George filmed it, and shot it, and basically you utilized all the special effect technologies with certain CG effects, but still stuck true to using so much practical and being in the theater. I mean, I had not seen a movie three times in a theater while it was in theaters since Predators came out, and I saw Mad Max Fury Road three times in theaters in like a three, uh, twice in basically the same week, and then a third time a few weeks later, and each time it was so it got better and better, and there's just something about having the original creator going back and waiting 20 some years to you know work on this several scripts, to just perfect his, original concept. And, I'm just so excited that, he's bringing it back. And, I'm all in for, I think it's going to be called Mad Max The Wasteland. I'm not sure if he's set on that yet, but, whatever Mad Max sequel comes next, please tell George for me, have you in it?
I would love to.
That would be so fantastic. Um, but the next film I would like to talk to you about, which is another one of my favorites of all time, uh, not just because of you, but because of Arnold Schwarzenegger as well. Commando.
Commando. That was a fun movie for me. I enjoyed it, but the funny thing again is that I was over here working for Joel Silver doing weird science, um, which I hadn't really wanted to do. It was a send up of Wes, and I got scared I would be pigeonholed into being this type of character. And I was more interested in going back to directing, but I was eventually convinced to come over to the States and do weird science, which I did, thankfully. And while I was here, Joel asked me if I would meet with the director of his next film, which was Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger. At the time, I couldn't even pronounce Arnold's name properly, let alone know what the film was about, but I met with the director, and he did not want me to do the film. He was afraid I would do it as a Wes character and Mad Max it up, and that wasn't what he was looking for. I guess sometimes people don't understand that we actually are actors, and that, when you do a film that has you doing one thing, you don't necessarily take that over into the next film. But I didn't mind. I was quite happy. I did the film here of Weird Science. I went back to Australia, did a film over there. And I was just doing my thing, directing commercials and enjoying myself. And I got a phone call from Joel Silver saying that they needed me to come back to the States because there'd been a change of direction while I was shooting, and they needed me to do the role. So I actually started filming on Commando after it had been filming. So I flew back to the States. The costume was let in, all kinds of things to make it fit me, because I don't think they had time to really build a whole new one for me. And I was on the set the day after I arrived, filming with Arnold, and Arnie was a little apprehensive about working with me because he thought that I was a little too gentle to be the killer, and not knowing that, number one, I was a little tired after a 14-hour flight, and number two, that's the way I work. I never really stand in front of the camera for rehearsals and push the character, because I'm trying to figure out what all the cameras are and what's happening, the lights, the actors, the whole scene. And Apparently, Joel Silver said to him, "Well, let's just do this scene, and if it doesn't work out, then we'll have to get someone else." I think Joel, somewhere in the back of his mind, figured out it was going to work, but he just let it go. And it was the scene where Arnold's strapped to the table, and I put the knife to his throat, telling him that if I'd have had my way, I would have killed him as well. And when they said action, of course, I just went into the character um, and Bennett, and just sort of grabbed Arnold on the table and held his head back and shoved this knife, into his throat, and did the whole scene. And then the director said, "Cut." And I walked away, and apparently Joel walked up to Arnold and he said, "Well, what do you think?" And apparently Arnold's only comment was, "Never give him a real knife." So that was the end of that. But he also said in one of the interviews that they did on set, he said, you look at him and he's such a big teddy bear. He's so nice and kind. And then when they say action, he becomes this brutal, insane human being. And that to me is what I'm supposed to do, because that's called acting. I'm not supposed to walk around being the idiot all day. I'm just supposed to do it when I'm required. But everybody has their way, everybody has their idea, and everybody does their thing. But working with Arnie was fun. I mean, he was a lot of fun to work with. He's like a big kid. Him and Mel the same. They both are like two big kids. They're always pulling pranks. They're always doing stuff. At times, it's like having a little brother that you want to take outside in the backyard and kick his ass just because he's annoying the crap out of him. However, you realize that you can't do that because he's just a little bit too big. But it just keeps everything moving along, and he was fun to work with. I think the end sequence in that film where we did that last fight was pretty much brutal because we're both pretty much the same size, height and weight, so it tended to get a little bit rough. We really got into it, and I think that's what makes it work so well, is that we were right out there doing it. And I always tell people the most terrifying thing in that film for me was standing with a thing on my chest and a piece of nylon going out of it to the top of a ladder. And on the top of that ladder, Arnold Schwarzenegger was standing with this large piece of pipe in his hand, looking down at me saying, "This won't hurt very much." And I was thinking, oh yeah, this is going to hurt one hell of a lot. And having him throw it down the nylon cord at me, it was kind of fun. I enjoyed it. Had a lot of fun doing it. I got to be very big friends with Alyssa Milano. She thought I was her big brother, so it was kind of fun with her. Got to be good friends with Arnold. And I enjoyed myself immensely on the film, being the second film I'd done in the United States, and really the first film I'd done as a co-star. I mean, in Weird Science, I was just brought in for a particular little piece of the film to stand myself up. So it was entertaining for me to come here and do that because of the way things are shot here and the money that they have to do it with from Australia, where they didn't have a lot of money, and you really had to scrape and save and cut corners and try to make it work and figure out ways of doing it. So that was an interesting eye-opener for me, and I do not regret one moment of it. It was a lot of fun.
And in the words of Arnold, blow off some steam, Bennett.
Yes. I mean, these one-liners. Yeah.
Right, one of the best one-liners out of his entire action movie career. I recently showed it to my friend at school, and he's, God bless him, but he was born in '95, so he's missed out on so much, that he needs to still catch up on. And, unfortunately, the difference between when he was growing up and when I was growing up is, Blockbuster and the whole, movie rental stores. I mean, when stuff was on VHS, I remember going to Blockbuster as a kid, and go to the horror, or sci-fi section, it's like, 4 rows long. The moment it went to DVD, it went, each one went to like 1 row, and it was like, the tragedy, in which led to, video rental stores going out of business, and now we have Netflix and whatnot. But I was showing him the Commando, and me from a screenwriter's perspective, I'm like, viewing everything, that you basically can't do now, in terms of writing an action movie, because the way
Hmm.
Stephen E. D'Souza wrote it, it was like you're told everything you need to know about all the characters, the protagonist, the antagonists, all with basically within like the first 10 minutes, and the rest of the movie is just Arnold, killing his way up the food chain to get to Bennett, and it's a fantastic movie, and Cinemax plays it like nonstop, and I'll watch it, every single time, not just because it's Arnold, but because it's Vernon Wells as well.
Yeah, it's kind of played a little, yes. Somebody said to me once that probably about every 3 minutes somewhere in America there's either Road Warrior or Commando or Weird Science playing somewhere, and which is probably true. I mean, it's ridiculous, but I just accept it and love it. I mean, what I love is that the people, oh, excuse me, people actually want to see what I've done, and I guess that's what makes it so interesting for me. That there are people who just want to watch, want to come up and talk to me about what I've done, and tell me what they think and how it affected them, and how um, their their whole life, kind of revolved around something that I did in a movie. I always think that is like really, really interesting and really, really nice to just have people do that and want to have that interaction with you, because it's just, it just makes you feel that you've done something that's affected so many people, and that is humbling in its own way. And just to have those people want to tell you how you've affected them, I think is even more humbling. And to know that I've got like 2 or 3 generations of the same family that have all seen the same movie and all come up to me at a convention and want to talk to me about it because they've loved it. I mean, that's like, wow, dude, that is just so amazing. And I guess I'm luckier than most because I've done so many films, so people have a lot to come up and talk to me about, and I love it. I love them liking it, and I love the fact that I get to talk to them. Because as I say to people when I'm talking, if they didn't like me, I wouldn't have a career. And I'm real happy that I still have a career and I'm still working. So God bless them. I hope they continue to like me for a long time to come.
Absolutely, I mean, I for one, like I said, would love to see you, return as some character, in the crazy mind of George Miller for the next Mad Max movie. If and honestly anything else, that you've done and have, up and coming things going on. Am in anything you're in. I'm in to check it out. And
All right.
it's exactly like what you just said. I mean, you have it's I mean, you really, your work has, just inspired me in my own work, and my vision and imagination, and with characters like Wes and Bennett, and another film that I would like to talk about is Circuitry Man 1 and 2.
Yeah, one of my favorite films. Circuitry Man. It's funny because once again, I got Circuitry Man because a good friend of mine was doing the lead in it, Jim Metzler, and Jim had suggested me, or he'd heard my name suggested, and the producers and director decided they couldn't afford to have me. And Jim kept sort of saying, well, why don't you just ring him and ask him? And they didn't want to do that. Um, and so eventually he gave me the script and I read it and I contacted them and I said, you know, guys, this is so much fun. I want to do this. I really do. And so that's how I got the role when they let me have it. And I just had so much fun with that. The character was just so much fun. And I got to do so many interesting things in that role. And I enjoyed it. When they did the second one, it was like, yay, we get to go back and do it again. So I was a happy little dude.
Those movies are again, with concept and everything, that is like, a possible future. That it was still that's still, so in the future as far as, when it's taking place, but again, look at where we're heading.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It is yeah. It's kind of an interesting thing to think about. That could be where we all end up. But I enjoy the whole thing. I mean, it's just sometimes you look at it and think, hmm, this should be fun. Let's just do this and enjoy it. And that was what I did in that film. Every so often I get films given to me that I really, really want to do so I can enjoy them. Because they're a little bit out of the ordinary. They're a little bit off center, as people like to say, because I tend to enjoy doing things that are just a little off kilter. And so that was my off kilter moment. Also, another film which you didn't mention, which I really adore, is a film I did for Stuart Gordon, King of the Ants, which
Well,
was another
hold
film
on,
which
hold.
where
I actually have on the list the three Stuart Gordon films you actually did do. I
ah
wasn't sure if we were going to have enough time to talk about those, but since you brought it up,
yes, that I love Stuart. By the way, he's just one of those people that you really enjoy working with, and I loved working with Stuart on the whole thing and doing that film for him, or doing the three films that I did with him were a pleasure. Probably doing King of the Ants was one of my ultimate pleasures. I love the film simply because the character that he had for me was the most redeemable of all the characters in the film, in reality, including the star. And yet, it was the character that got the worst death in the end. It was like that whole adage of no good deed goes unpunished. So it was just, to me, so much fun, and everybody in that film was so good. Oh my God! And it was just a pleasure working with them, and doing it and watching it when it was over, see how it came together, and just seeing what we'd accomplished. I loved it. I love that stuff, and I love Stuart. I love working with Stuart. He's just the most amazing person. And doing his film in Australia, Fortress. Once again, he actually wrote that part for me, because when we were doing the audition, I put him through the wall of the room we were auditioning in. I got a little bit physical and sort of smashed the wall with poor Philip, with poor what's his name, Stuart. Yeah, and he wrote that role for me, 666, the devil incarnate. But it was fun. I enjoy doing that kind of stuff. I guess more than a lot of stuff I get to do. It's, you know, it tends to be one of those things where you sometimes get to do all the films that are similar in content, because of what you have established as the area of expertise, so to say. And it's really cool stepping outside that sometimes and being able to do something totally different to what people would expect from me. I did another little film very similar to that, which was called True Loved, which I adored, which was just a little film about an anti-gay football coach who didn't realize that his quarterback was gay, and when he found out, all of his animosity came out. But I just love all that sort of stuff. People just don't get to do what I get to do at times, and I just adore it because I get to play all these characters and all these roles, and I get to be on the set with all these amazing people and directors. And you know what? I wouldn't change it for the world because I just have so much fun with it. Oh my God, it's just like I get to do things that other people just hope they can do. And I think that I've had such an amazing career. I've done 179. I think I finished my 180th film a week ago. So, I can kind of look back on it and go, it was fun, dude. And that's basically how I look at it, that all of this was a lot of fun. And, I'm still here, I'm still working, and I'm still looking to see what the next movie will be that I get cast in. It's that simple.
Awesome. And I for one am excited to see what that next film Vernon Wells is in will be.
Well, I just finished filming a part in Steven Seagal's new movie called Perfect Weapon, so you'll see me in that one. And
Oh,
tonight I
awesome.
go to a screening of a film I did called The Horde. So that'll be coming out. I've got something like 5 films coming out in the next 3 or 4 months. So I guess you'll see me around.
Very, very cool. The last thing I would like to talk to you about, real quick,
Hmm. Yeah.
is Power Rangers.
Power Rangers. You know what? That's funny because when I first got asked to audition for Power Rangers, I was like, it's a dumb kids show. And I was like, well, yeah, but and I was like, I'm in Las Vegas working, doing a Las Vegas kind of talk show that I was involved in. So the idea of flying back to Los Angeles to audition for kids show really didn't appeal to me, but I got told that my butt had to be back in LA. So I flew back to LA for the audition, and I walked into the casting room, and I was stunned by the amount of people in there that I'd seen on television, and I mean on big shows. I was like, whoa, this is a little bit unreal. All these people are in here for this film, for this show. So I went in, did my audition, left, and went back to Vegas because I was working. Didn't think anything of it. I figured that one of the other people who had a higher television profile than I did would get it. And I got asked to come back and do a second audition. So I came back from Vegas, and there was a lot fewer people in the room. And I did my second audition, went back to Vegas. And then a couple of weeks after that, I was asked if I would come back to LA because the executive producer had been sick and hadn't been able to see my audition and wanted to see me in person. So I came back and realized that one of the people I was auditioning for, Koichi, I had worked with on a film about, probably 9 months prior. He'd been he'd been the stunt coordinator on a film I'd done in Ireland. And that was with the boy as well, with Stuart. um, doing his sci-fi movie over there. So I already had somebody in my corner that I didn't realize I had. So I went in, I did my audition, and lo and behold, I got the role. And that turned out to be the greatest 12 months of my life. I had so much fun. I got to create a wonderful character. I had a lot of things that were first in the American version of the series. Number one, the role never existed. They wrote it. It was actually supposed to be the girl that played my daughter. She was actually the villain of the series, but they wanted to get away from female villains, so they wrote the male villain, and she became the daughter. Um, so the role, they could do anything they liked with. They weren't stuck to the conformity of what the Japanese version had been, which made it amazing. Number two, I got to kill a Red Ranger. It had never happened in the American series ever, that a Ranger being killed. I was a human villain, which they hadn't had up until that stage. They'd always been alien villains or something else, but he was a human villain. And they went into his background. There was all these wonderful episodes they did explaining how I became who I was, and some of them were just really, really good. I mean, my God, they were really, really good for a kids show. And on top of that, they did a double episode, which became a movie, which was the film Magic, which was where all of the Power Rangers got to live their fantasy out playing in a movie the character they wanted to be. And of course, all through that, I was prowling the whole place trying to get to them and disrupt everything, and they had me dressed like Wes out of Mad Max. So I had a ball. I really, really had a ball, and I loved it. And I was very proud of what I did in it, and for what I thought originally was going to be a simple, turned out to be an exceptionally well put together. Well, very proud of it, of the show, and I still am very proud of it. And just on a footnote, the whole cast of that show, all of us, Erin, Michael, Jason, Kevin, myself, we and the other two, we've always stayed in touch, and we all still get together. And if there's ever a convention where they want us, we all go together. We've all stayed friends since we did that show. We're the only cast of that series that has remained friends. So that I'm very proud of too. We really got along well.
Very, very cool. Very, very cool. Well, Vernon, it has been a pleasure having you on the Fishbowl. If you'd ever like to do another interview, talk about some of your other work, I'd love to have you on the show again. It's been just a pleasure talking with you.
Well, thank you. It's been my pleasure, actually. I've enjoyed it immensely. Um, I just, I'm always amused that people want to talk to me, number one, and especially people like yourself. I just feel very blessed that I've had this career that I've been able to enjoy. I mean, I look at it that this is something that every day I get out of bed where I have to go to the set or I'm off to an audition or I'm doing something, that I am in heaven every time I do that. I have so much fun. When I'm on the set, it's the greatest time of my life. I'm just so, that's what I am. And I just feel that being able to do that is something that a lot of people don't get that privilege. So I feel blessed that I have it, because there's so many people who I consider so much better actors than I am that have never had the opportunities that I got. So, I'm very humbled by it, and I think that we all should, be very, very humbled by the fact that we're able to be actors and that we're able to do the job we do, and get rid of all this I am so special because I'm an actor crap, and just come down to earth and go, you know what? This is an amazing career, an amazing thing that we do. We get to touch so many people, and we should be so goddamn proud of the fact that we're able to do it, and so humbled by the fact that we get cast in these things. And we should kiss every producer's feet every time we get cast in something, because, there's a lot of people out there that would kill to have our jobs. and I'm glad that I've got it.
I could not have put it any better myself.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely, it
I'll take
is.
over your job soon. Just kidding.
Well, you know what? I graduate in May. I'm planning on moving out to Los Angeles within a year or two after this coming May. So, you know, I'd love to keep in touch. Who knows? I'll write a script and get you cast in it.
Hey, I would love that. And you know what? A lot of the films that I have gotten, a lot of films I do are exactly from people like you who talk to me or have met me and say to me, dude, I'm just struggling. I'm trying to get things together, but when I get it together, I've got a script I'd love you to look at. And they do. They send me the script, and I end up doing the film. So, or whatever it is, whether it's a film or it's doing a series for Netflix, whatever. I'm open to all of it, and I look at everything that's sent to me, and I always look at it in the right light. I don't just go, "Oh, come on, you got to be kidding me." I will always give back to people advice. If someone says to me, I want you to read this, tell me what you think. I try to be truthful without being hurtful, and just try to suggest from the experience that I've been lucky to have how I would possibly change things to make it work a little better and to run a little easier. But apart from that, you know what? I'm behind everybody that wants to make it in this business because it's a hard business. It's really, really the worst business to be in when you think about it because your spirit gets crushed more than it gets elevated. And you just got to be able to accept it. And I think we all need to be able to pat each other on the back occasionally and say, hey, it's cool, dude. Just get out there and kick ass and don't take names because next time you'll probably make it.
That is just so awesome to hear. I have your email. I am definitely going to be keeping in touch. Just thank you so much again. It's just been a pleasure being able to talk with you.
It was my pleasure to talk to you. I'm glad we got to do it. And I got to get my A into G because I got to get ready. I fly out tomorrow morning. I've got to do a show Saturday, Halloween thing, end of October, Halloween, ghosts and goblins and Vernon
Right.
Wells. What the hell?
Well, best of luck with that. And again, just thank you. And I am definitely going to be keeping in touch.
My pleasure, sir. Thanks so much.
Absolutely.
Bye.